Thanks everyone for joining us today as we talk about our recent trip to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I want to welcome you on behalf of Colorado Business Roundtable. My name is Debbie Brown and I'm the president of our organization. We're excited to brief in particular our partners here in Colorado. We've got about 50 partners, all that are incredibly globally minded, that work and have employees not only in Colorado, but across the country, and most of them have global interests as well. A little bit about Colorado Business Roundtable before we begin. We work, as we like to say, within academia, business, and community and government to help amplify the voice of business as a force for good in our community. We have about 25 board members that represent CEOs and C-suite executives of some of America's largest employers. And we work to amplify the voice of business because we know that business isn't about buildings, it's about people and the lives and opportunity that they want to live. So today I'm excited to especially brief our partners here in Colorado about our recent trip to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that we took in October. While 8 of us were able to make it in terms of Colorado Business Roundtable, we want to make sure that our other business partners and other businesses within the state understand about our trip and in particular about the business and economic and investment opportunities that there are in the kingdom that might not be top of mind. So how this started, just to give a little bit more of a framework, we had an event with 10 incredibly high profile women in Colorado in June of 2020 with Her Royal Highness Princess Rima. And it really set off a chain of events. Through that conversation, there was a deep understanding and in my case, personal affection for Ambassador Rima and the leadership that she's providing here in the United States, representing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so we were able to, at her invitation, go to Saudi Arabia to attend the Future Investment Initiative, which you'll hear more about, which is a global conference that highlights investment opportunities in the kingdom and brings together leaders from across the globe, as you can imagine. And part of our objective as well for the trip was to also further develop business relationships, economic relationships, and understanding between our two countries. So this trip was very eye-opening, as you could probably imagine, for some of our delegation who hadn't been to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia before, including myself. And we wanted to share that again with our partners. And that's why we're here today, to kind of share a little bit of our reflections on the trip, our impressions, and hopefully it'll give the folks who weren't able to attend this particular delegation a little bit of a flavor of what we experienced on the ground when we were in Saudi Arabia. So for today's purposes, we've got 2 parts. One is I have pinned the folks from the delegation onto the conversation today for the webinar, who are going to tell you about their particular business interests, perhaps, and also their impressions and some of the things we did along the way. And then part 2 of the webinar, we're going to hear from specifically from 2 folks who understand what the business and investment and economic climate is like in Saudi Arabia and can help thread the needle for our businesses on how they can engage further, looking down the road 2022 and beyond, and how they can get involved as well. So before we jump in with the Colorado delegation, I want to give a special welcome to Fahad Nazir, who is the official spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy on behalf of Saudi Arabia, and he was accompanying us on our trip to the kingdom. So kick us off, Fahad, with some opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie, for organizing this webinar, and thank you for organizing the visit. As some of you may know, as a spokesperson, I do have a chance to speak to Americans both in Washington as well as across the country about a broad array of issues, and I really relish that part of the job. However, I have to say that the most rewarding part is actually accompanying delegations of Americans to the kingdom. I've had the pleasure and really the honor of doing that 3 times since June, including with the Colorado Business Roundtable. And I think that really there is no substitute to going to the kingdom, to being on the ground, I think that we had a chance, the delegation had a chance to speak to a lot of officials in important positions in the government, but they also had a chance to speak with a broad array of Saudis about a host of issues. And, as far as I'm concerned, this is how you build long-lasting relationships. These people-to-people contacts and visits and exchanges have been a linchpin of the relationship going back 76 years. I certainly look forward to being a part of these delegations going forward. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. So thank you, Debbie, and I'm looking forward to a constructive conversation.
Thank you, Fahad. And I would just say, I'm sure we could spend the entire webinar talking about how thankful we are for you and your team. There's not enough time to go into all that, but that we've expressed our gratefulness for you and for Nof and for Jim and for Chuck. We had an incredible team supporting our visit who helped handle logistics and planning and scheduling, and that we know that takes a lot of work to put into place, and especially Jamana, who was with us, who was in country in Saudi Arabia. So just a special thank you to you and all the folks who helped provide support for our trip.
It was my absolute pleasure, Debbie. And again, I have to credit you and everyone in the delegation. It was very clear to me that you went in with an open mind and with an open heart. And that has been the case for all the American delegations that have accompanied. And really, we can't ask for anything more. Again, this is how these relationships are built, and that's how they endure. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to host you. And I hope that we were able to give you just a little bit of a flavor for what's happening in the kingdom.
Great. Thank you, Fahad. Appreciate it. And we're going to move now to the rest of the Colorado group. And before I jump in with some questions for each of you specifically, wanted to give kind of a big picture, especially for folks who aren't in tune with what's happening in Saudi Arabia. Just big picture, one of the things I learned from Ambassador Rima back in 2020 was there's really a game plan for the economic diversification and growth of the kingdom that's called Vision 2030. And it was interesting to me to think of this as the framework to some degree of our entire trip. It fit very succinctly in what was happening with the Future Investment Initiative, what was happening in terms of prioritization, growth of industries, and interesting about Vision 2030 being kind of that game plan for accelerated, fast, and very strategic growth that they're experiencing. Just fascinating to see it in terms of that really big historical change. So in a short time, what we've seen in terms of Vision 2030, and one of the things that I like to really reflect on for part of my visit was what we've already seen in terms of workforce participation of women. And this was one of the topics, again, that I shared with Ambassador Rima, that the workforce has increased dramatically from 20% to 33% in actually just 2 years, according to the Brookings Institute. And the data shows that women from all ages and education are benefiting from some of the cultural reforms that are happening in the kingdom. And what we've seen with Vision 2030 is that only with a full and robust workforce can some of the big strategic imperatives actually be executed completely. So under that vision of 2030, I want to go ahead and introduce the team. It's hard to put into words really what we experienced when we were there, but we're going to give it our best shot. So I'm going to give kind of a quick introduction of all of you, and then we'll go into kind of one by one. But Matt Adrian is with us, Senior Financial Consultant with G5 Financial Group. Dave Eddy, the Colorado Site Director for Boeing. Polly Lawrence, Senior Policy Director for Denton's. Danny Moore, President and Managing Partner with DeNovo Solutions. Karina Martin, President and Founder of A Precious Child. And Scott Yenzer with JMJ Associates and also on the board of Sear Corp. So welcome everybody. Great to see you all again. I think we're all finally over jet lag, hopefully, because that was a lot. I want to talk about this chronologically. And again, we could all talk about this for hours because we experienced it. So trying to condense what we experienced in 5 days into kind of a shorter update. Karina, let me start with you. So day one, we just finished a couple flights to get to Saudi Arabia. And day one, Fahad is telling us about what we're going to do. Give us a description of what day one was like and the trip to Alula.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah. Well, to start off, Alula is the most incredible place I've ever been. It's one of the oldest cities in the Arabian Peninsula and home to Hagra. And so y'all need to go see it. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's so incredibly rich in historical and geographical and geological significance. It's an ancient city. It once was the crossroads of the Silk Road and the incense route. And so it's only recently been rediscovered by the world. And so the kingdom's investing billions of dollars to make Alula a high-end travel and adventure destination. And in my opinion, it is definitely one for all of you to add to your must-see bucket list.
What was the size and scope of Alula like? It seems like if you're seeing the pyramids for the first time, it would maybe have that kind of effect, but how did you feel seeing it?
It feels spiritual, honestly. It feels like you're connecting with ancestors. It feels like something that you can't even put into words, Debbie. It's so magical.
That's awesome, Karina. I'm excited to see that sometime soon too. Tell me, one of the things you and I talked about before the trip that was on your list was definitely to be able to meet Ambassador Rima in person. And our schedules were constantly changing, nothing was a guarantee, but that was something that was definitely on your list as a bucket list item. And we were able to meet Ambassador Rima and talk with her. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, well, as you know, I was moved to tears when I met Ambassador Rima. She's such an inspirational woman. She's so down to earth. She really cares about the kingdom and has put a lot of energy and work into transforming the kingdom with women's rights. And so it's no small feat what she's been able to accomplish in a really short amount of time in the kingdom. And what I thought was most impressive is we had an opportunity to meet several women business leaders who now own their own companies. And it was clear that these women are truly empowered in the kingdom. And I know that she has played a major role in that.
Thanks so much, Karina. Appreciate your time today.
You.
Matt, I want to jump to you. And again, we're going to just push into day two, because I know day one was a lot about traveling to Alula. Day two, we had a meeting and a tour with the Minister of Culture and Tourism. I'd love to hear more about that meeting. Part of that include a tour of a museum. Give us a sense of what we learned about how they're prioritizing culture within Vision 2030.
Well, I part of that was also that art gallery that we went to. And going into Saudi Arabia, I didn't think artists and how good art would be there. And that art museum was just phenomenal to walk through and to see the different perspectives that those artists are bringing to showing their history and their culture and bringing it forward to the future and being engaging, that wall that we could pick out like the little boxes. And it was just a really fun cultural kind of like experience to go through.
Yeah, it's almost like if people were to come to the United States and see Williamsburg or some of our historical sites, we were able to see and understand more about history and culture of the kingdom. Tell us a little bit about kind of the hospitality you experienced. I had always heard that, I found it interesting, the greetings, the traditions, but tell us what I know this is something you and I had talked about about the rich hospitality.
Yeah, so unfortunately, everybody, I had to cut my trip a little short, but due to that, I didn't anticipate a young Saudi Arabian male to sit with me after he gets off work at the airport for 2 hours to make sure I made my flight. I mean, that's the epitome of hospitality in my mind. This kid could have gone home, could have done anything else, but they stayed with me through that time period. So, and that's just one example of what we all experienced over there. They were just so kind and giving. And if you ever had any issue, you just ask somebody and they would be willing to answer. So in all my travels through all the different countries I've been to, Europe, Asia, their culture was the most, I would say, humble and giving culture that I've experienced.
Tell us too, I think it was interesting to get used to at almost every stop we made, Matt, the tradition of offering dates, of offering coffee. Tell us more about that. That just felt like people prepared me for that, but I didn't really understand until I was there.
Like, and it was in sync. Like they would take their little and pour the coffee into this little cup, and it would be in sync for all of us. And the dates, I mean, you could get like dates covered in chocolate all the way to like spices, and it was just just expect to have a lot of coffee when you go over there at every meeting.
I know something. I think it'd be, we just don't practice that kind of hospitality. A lot of times it was really beautiful.
I'm going to bring that into my meetings. I'm going to just have like a little coffee.
Yeah, that's a good takeaway. And I think too, I don't know if you want to comment on the food, if you had any experiences with the food that you had that week.
And Fahad, I might have to lean in on you for the restaurant that we went to in Alula. It was the best food. The Saudi Arabian food is just like amazing. I wish we had some better restaurants here that served that type of food. Ranging, it was the first time I had. So it was cantaloupe. So they had cantaloupe. They hollowed it out and put creme brulee inside of it, and never done that before. It was phenomenal dessert. So yeah, very creative and a way to bring their history and move it forward into the culture of food. And yeah, it was very enjoyable.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. I mean, definitely it's funny that that's such a big part beyond the business meetings, was just getting a nice literal taste of the culture that we were experiencing.
Yeah. And you put on weight when you go there because they overfeed you.
Fair. Hey, next I want to bring in Polly Lawrence with Denton's and to talk a little bit more about day two, kind of to add some other flavor to that. But one of the things that was also a highlight for me and for Polly was touring the National Competitiveness Center. And Polly, tell us about that.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting to be in a room with 10 to 12 small business owners who came from around the country to meet with us and tell us about their experiences. Her Excellency, Dr. Iman Al-Matari, the Deputy Minister of Commerce, provided a brief presentation and really outlined how the government has really made it a priority to streamline the process for opening businesses, for getting passports and visas, and allowing just the entrepreneurial spirit to be set free across the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Just as a follow-up to Polly, you're a former elected leader here in Colorado, used to make policies on behalf of business. I think we even sort of like did a mind meld with each other, like, wow, I mean, this is an organization that's trying to break down barriers quickly for business interests, not only in country, but, cross borders. There's some lessons learned that we need to take back. I mean, it's pretty amazing to think about how do we make it easier for businesses to operate? How do we become more competitive? I think we were both thinking along those lines too.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're doing the exact opposite of what some of our governments, state governments and federal government is doing, where we tend to put new regulations in place that makes it more difficult to get that visa or open that business or comply with, a rule or a law in a state. And they're taking the exact opposite view. they want to open things up. They want entrepreneurs to open their stores and open up the kingdom to the rest of the world. So I thought it was really interesting, and I wish we could bottle some of those ideas and some of that magic to make Colorado and the United States more open and really a little bit more, and I hate to use the word progressive, maybe thoughtful in how they work with businesses.
Yeah, definitely. We had part of our Road to Recovery initiative, as you all might recall, we had a section on there about creating a competitiveness agenda. So that word competitiveness, has been something that we've used with Colorado Business Roundtable as well, and knowing that we're all competing for dollars in business. So they've definitely put an entire center around that, which is incredibly impressive. Last, Polly, I wanted you to just comment briefly about the meeting we had that evening on the second day with the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness. What can you tell us in big picture terms about that meeting?
I would say big picture, he's younger than I thought he was going to be. Honestly, I think he's just a little bit older than my kids, and he is the Crown Prince of a really quickly developing country. And just to feel his excitement and his engagement and just his plans for everyone in the kingdom, not just the men, but including the women, and really making the 2030 vision a universal North Star for everyone in the kingdom. It was really, his energy was infectious.
And I think I remember we all left that meeting, debriefed after, and we're just kind of like, wow, a vision without execution doesn't really go anywhere, but he definitely was about execution.
Absolutely.
Great. Moving on to Scott. Scott, I wanted to talk to you about day 3 to give us a sense of that. We had some really interesting meetings. I know that were some of your top of mind meetings on day 3. Can you share more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed that day. I enjoyed all the days, to be honest, but meeting with His Excellency Adel Al-Jubeir was a fascinating meeting. We spent 2 hours with him, and we covered a range of topics from politics to security. And having lived in Saudi Arabia for 15 years, I've always had a keen eye on Saudi. And whenever he would speak as Saudi ambassador to the U.S., I always admired his take and delivery and so forth. So it was an honor to meet him. But the real special part came after the press left, and we were able to just talk openly about various topics. And then you really get to learn a little bit about the man and his character and his sense of humor and mannerisms. But we covered, all those topics. One of the really interesting ones from a business standpoint is they're really opening up Saudi Arabia. I mean, having been there for a long time, I knew there was a lot of historic sites like a Jewish and Christian and obviously Muslim historic sites, but they're there, and their goal is to open up the country to that tourism. There's just so much history, and it all, everybody's from Abraham, so it's all part of their heritage. So that was fascinating that's actually going to happen, and Mount Sinai is there, and all these historic sites to bring that tourism and share that culture that just hasn't been exposed in recent decades. So I was excited to hear that. It was wonderful, and I guess the introduction to Jerry out at Riyadh was also funny. He brought in we were telling him about our trip to Alula, and he asked if we'd been to Riyadh, and it's where the House of South started. And we said, well, no. And he brought his mobile in and put it on speakerphone, and we had a nice conversation with Jerry and saw him 2 days later. It was lovely. It was really a fascinating take on politics, security, culture, and business in general. So it was wonderful.
Thanks, Scott. And you have the distinct background of having lived and worked in Saudi Arabia in the past. And so there were a lot of times we were kind of looking over at you like, okay, how does this fit contextually with what you've seen in the past, what you're seeing in the future, what your predictions are for the future? And we really relied on you to help kind of be our Colorado expert on the kingdom. So give us that sense, share with our other partners how you're feeling about just the progression of doing business in the kingdom.
Yeah, I lived there from 1992 to 2008 and did business. I worked for Fortune 500 companies while I was there, ran really giant projects. And one thing that hasn't changed is the behavior of the people there. The hospitality and friendliness has not changed. That's been consistent. It's always in my mind been a good place to do business. Things have improved drastically with His Royal Highness coming on and stamping out any last bit of corruption there was. I mean, I guess so that was some things that haven't changed. The business and the ability to start business, ability to get visas. I mean, that was a huge challenge for us back in the day. And now that it's so much easier, everything's online. It's really it makes life a lot easier heading into Saudi Arabia. The cultural changes that they've made with empowering women and basically giving them the liberty that they didn't have. I don't think that culture's changed a whole lot. I think that a lot of my friends, they would send their daughters to school in the West, and they lived a certain way, not much different than the rest of the world. But now they have the liberty they had to follow certain laws. Now they're still kind of living the same, but they're not constrained by the laws. And thanks to His Royal Highness, made that possible and really liberated a lot of women. And that, I think that makes a more comfortable business environment as well to bring people over and make joint ventures and do joint business together. It's the business culture and openness, I think, has changed a lot. The core hospitality of Saudis, about the same. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Scott. I know you're going to be back frequently. That's your plan.
Indeed, yes.
Good. So Danny, want to bring you in to the conversation and talk a little bit more. One of the main reasons we were there was to attend the Future Investment Initiative, which I had mentioned is an annual investment forum, sometimes dubbed Davos in the Desert, which focuses on trends in the world economy and investment environment. Talk a little bit about FII for us.
Absolutely, Debbie. Thank you. And I'd just like to echo what everyone else has already said. The warmth, the kindness, the hospitality. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've traveled all over the world. To get an idea about the Future Investment Initiative, you really have to paint a picture. So think about the Ritz-Carlton, which is the most beautiful building, the most beautiful set of buildings I've ever seen. Take that and then bring the world's greatest minds in investment, renewable energy, education, and have them get together to discuss how to impact humanity as a whole. I think FII really does reflect the Saudi leadership in this area. We had an opportunity to hear people talk about renewable energy and how it's going to change and progress the world. We saw technology demonstrations that, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know existed. It is a place where people not only thought about what needed to be done, they exchanged ideas about what needed to be done. And then from that, they acted on those ideas and investment and deals. I have never seen anything like it. I've never experienced anything like it. It is something we all need to be doing in order to move this world forward. It is the collaboration event of the world.
And I agree, Danny. I've been to some fancy hotels too, and was pretty blown away by the venue. It was more than I expected. Tell us too, you're talking about all the different thought leadership that was in the room. A couple of the thought leaders we had a chance to connect with while we were in country were some executives with NEOM. And if people don't know about this, they're going to know about it sooner or later. But tell everybody a little bit about those meetings and what we learned about this new project.
Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. We had the opportunity, the pleasure of meeting Joe Bradley, who's the CEO of NEOM, and Dessa Bogatis, who's the COO and CFO. NEOM is an ambitious project to build essentially a city, but it's not just any city. It is a technological advanced city on the Red Sea. It is taking into account renewable energy, technology, AI, the metaverse that we now talk about now. They're talking about that for NEOM. It is a $500 billion effort that is going to transform how people live, how people buy things, how they interact with one another. It really shows the key components of Vision 2030 in the leadership of the Saudi Kingdom.
Thanks, Danny. And last for you as a business owner and CEO yourself in not only in Colorado, but in several countries and across the US. I know that your brain was ticking the entire time about, okay, how do I do business in Saudi Arabia? How do I have a contract? How do I expand? I know that there were a lot of those interesting conversations that were coming up, and I'm curious how you thought about Saudi Arabia as a potential place to do business, how you might advise other business CEOs as they think about a new place to expand and grow.
Well, I think for me, it was opportunity abound. Everywhere you look, there was opportunity. We talked a little bit about the mineral resources that existed in Saudi Arabia and how Colorado is known for mines, school of mine, and getting people trained and deployed to help take some of those minerals out of the ground and put them to good use. But for me, it was technology. If you're involved in AI and robotics, if you're involved in renewable energy, workforce development, that's Saudi Arabia is the place to be. 10 years from now, it will be too late. If you're not involved in and helping grow and create opportunities in Saudi Arabia now, 10 years from now, it'll be too late, because Saudi Arabia will be transformed 10 years from now. And it will be the technological jewel of the Middle East, if not the world.
So I think you're going to be back. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
Perfect. Last but not least, certainly is our board chairman, former board chairman, just stepped down, but I'm thankful for his service, Dave Eddy, who's the site director here for the Boeing Company. And Dave wanted to give you kind of an impossible task to help sort of finalize day 5 of our trip. We had a couple other meetings. We thought it would be a down day. We thought we'd catch our breath and take a nap, but we were pretty busy on the last day in country. So give us a little bit of flavor of that day 5.
You bet. Thank you, Debbie. Wow, it was hard to believe that we were finally going to head home in the middle of the night following 5 days of just some amazing experiences. And I think day 5, we started out with breakfast with Dessa, as Danny mentioned, who's the COO and CFO of NEOM, the NEOM project. So to get her out of, I guess, the FII setting and just sitting at breakfast and talking about everything that she's doing in support of that project was really great to see some of the insights that she was looking at and the plan forward for that particular project. And then, as Scott mentioned, that conversation with Jerry and Al Jabbar about going and seeing Riyadh. We went over there and were immediately greeted by Jerry as he ran out of the building full of energy. We went inside the building and he had this amazing to scale, probably 20-foot square model of what this transformation is going to look like. And essentially what they're doing is he's managing a $50 billion project. By the way, that his budget next year is $18 billion alone. And he's one of the smaller projects. The Crown Prince is investing over $1 trillion in a variety of programs in the kingdom to cover every imaginable subject. But anyway, back to the Riad project. So they have this project that's going to essentially put a lot of money and investment into capturing a brand new community that's going to be developed with education, museums, a place for people and families to come not only live, but participate recreationally in a bunch of different and sports and variety of opportunities. And then there's a particular place that we went and toured after we met with Jerry called At Taref, which is also a UNESCO heritage site. And so as we began to tour this, they have made a huge amount of progress in restoring this 15th century site, which was the first Saudi state. It's the original seat of power in Saudi Arabia's Al Saudi family. It's not open to the public yet. And so as we toured this facility, they are putting it back in exactly the way it existed back in the 15th century. And so to see them use modern technology and kind of mix the ability to showcase with a variety of presentations and capturing art and historic artifacts as we toured that site was truly breathtaking. I mean, we saw everything from saddles back in the 15th centuries to books to coins to swords. It was just amazing. And so I can see as that continues to progress how it could really be a tourism focus for the kingdom. You know, I pause to think some of our historic sites here in the United States, Gettysburg, maybe Yosemite, the Alamo, some of those things, if we were to go and put the kind of investment in those places to show the rest of the world how proud we are of our historic landmarks, what a great program that would be for the United States. And we just kind of do it, in my opinion, part way. Yes, they're there and you can go see them, but we don't spend a lot of money restoring them so that people can really get the flavor of what those particular sites were like. You can go see old areas in the United States, but you know, I'd really like to see us invest and showcase some of those things that would really showcase our history. So we went from there over to tour what's called Old Souks. Jumana was a great tour guide in weaving our way through the marketplace, if you will, and we saw a lot of opportunity where people were showing and selling different things, including kind of an open market thing where we went up and down these aisles that they had all these artifacts placed on rugs and there was bartering going on, and it was a lot of fun. And then we tried to do a little bit of shopping, didn't do enough. I think that I wish we would have had more time to take advantage of that. And then we went off to dinner. And I think, you know, meeting His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Bandar, who is the president of the Saudi Arabian Federation for Electronic and Intellectual Sports, I had no idea they had an individual that was pushing electronic gaming and the kind of stuff that he talked about at dinner. He has this amazing idea to reward these gamers with NFTs and then tie the NFTs to programs that will help people within the kingdom as far as programs for underprivileged kids and sports and those type of things. So he had a lot of really amazing ideas. But I think the other takeaway is, and it's hard for me to convey this when I talk to people about our trip, is the level of people that we were able to meet. If you were to try to translate that to people in the United States, it would be very, very high officials in the U.S. government, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce. I mean, we had discussions with those level of individuals sitting across the table, talking with them many times for a half an hour, 2 hours with Al-Jabbar. And they were so informative and kind and generous and spoke very well of not only the United States, but also of Vision 2030, which I've been telling people about since I got back. So truly an amazing experience just with day 5. And I could go on and on about day 1 through 4 too.
Thank you, Dave. And just a final comment from you. I remember thinking, we're exhausted, we're exhilarated. What was your biggest takeaway? And you might have mentioned it already, but I'm just curious as kind of a wrap up to your comments.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint a biggest takeaway other than I went in with a preconceived vision notion of what the kingdom was like. And it was obviously predicated on what existed way back. But I think when we met with the former senator, and I'll get his state wrong, I don't know if it was Kansas or Ohio, in
Norm
FII.
Coleman, I think, yeah.
Yes, and we're standing there, and our delegation's there, Karina, Polly, and he says to those women, as recently as 2017, at the FII conference, you would not be able to attend, one. Second, if you did attend, you wouldn't be able to be dressed like you were. And third, you wouldn't be able to be meeting with men. And all of that in a span of just 4 years has completely changed. And so, as the other delegation members mentioned, the amount of access and just being able to talk to regular Saudis and see the transformation that country has done at an accelerated pace that is just mind-boggling. The other one, I guess, just to close out, is their infrastructure as far as their access to technology. When COVID hit, they were immediately able to transition to put their kids online, and nobody had issues with internet access. I mean, could we say the same here in the United States? Not a chance. We have so many people that don't have access to that just type of opportunity. And yet here's Saudi Arabia, who many of us, when we tour there, think, oh, we're going back in time. Well, guess what? They've passed us up in a lot of areas. So that was probably my biggest takeaway is just the amazing transformation and acceleration and change that country is going through and will continue up to 2030.
Great, thanks, Dave. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to give some feedback today. Again, for the impressions of the trip, we've put up different photos on our social media that I would direct people to if you want to see pictures of some of these sites that we saw, some of the different meetings, some pictures of the FII conference, et cetera. But appreciate you all being on. We also had Carla on our board who was on our trip. She wasn't able to make it to the webinar today, but she shared some of her insights as well. So with that, we're going to switch to part 2 of the webinar, and I'm going to do some quick unpinning and pinning before I do some introductions. But excited to now talk through opportunities that are available for businesses here in Colorado to specifically get more engaged. Let me see if I can handle all my technology and chat at the same time. I'm going to find here, let's see, there we go. Wonderful. So, gentlemen, welcome to part 2 of our webinar. We're excited to have you join us. And I'll introduce you both briefly, and then we'll both give some remarks and we'll do a little bit of follow-up. But it's important, I think, not only to talk about our trip in terms of our reflections, what we personally saw on the ground, but without action, we're kind of, what's the point? So we want to make sure that our business partners certainly know how to engage, like Danny that you heard, like Scott, who are engaging already. But how does the broad-based business community here in Colorado understand what opportunities could be available to them? So with that, really excited to introduce the VP of Saudi Ministry of Investment, Abdul Rahman Bakir. Welcome. Hopefully I got your name close. I hope so. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Colorado is one of my favorite states, if not my favorite.
Good. We actually heard that a lot when we were in Saudi Arabia. A lot of people have gone to school here, vacationed here, have done business here in the past. And so it's no surprise because our countries have been, had such a close relationship for so long. And that leads me to my introduction of one of my new friends the past year and a half, Delano Roosevelt, who is the president of the U.S. Saudi Business Council. Thanks for joining us, Del.
It's my pleasure, Debbie. Thank you.
So the way I think I'm going to run this is Abdullah Rahman. Am I getting that right? I so apologize. I wanted to kick off with you to give remarks, and I know I've got a couple slides to show, and then I'll ask some follow-up questions. And then Del, you're going to be the closer today. We're going to finish up with what your organization does and how people can get more involved. So that's kind of where we're headed. So would love to kind of kick off that introduction. Let's see, you are the Vice President of the Saudi Ministry of Investment America office, where you work for the Kingdom's diplomatic mission in the US. And appreciate, again, I know that we met you in Saudi Arabia as well. But in your current role, your focus is to develop, attract, and expand quality investments for the Kingdom. You've worked globally in a number of positions on trade and investment in the public and private sector. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abdulrahman Bakir to talk about his office and his key priorities. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Debbie. And again, as I said, it's overwhelming to hear that amount of feedback and overview from the Coloradans about Saudi Arabia. We are grateful for the trip that you had and happy that you enjoyed it. Also, I'm happy that I'm speaking before my friend Delano. This is the first time I speak before him, because usually if he speaks, he's one of the best speakers I saw in my life. So I have nothing to add after him. I would like just to start by saying that investors from across the Kingdom and around the globe, they play a crucial role in the Kingdom's national transformation story. And we believe that US businesses are at the heart of our plan. More investors than ever have responded to the opportunities in Saudi, with the number of foreign companies setting up in the Kingdom more than doubling in the first year of launching the Invest Saudi program, which is part of the Ministry of Investment. Now, to build on this remarkable foundation and in recognition of the vital contribution of the investors, the General Investment Authority was elevated to a full ministry status that has an expanded mandate and now oversees the Kingdom's entire investment ecosystem, spearheaded by a well-known, highly regarded Minister, His Excellency Khalid Al-Falih, who you've met in Riyadh during the FII in October. For that, if I may just ask you to please have a glance on your screen and to take you through a couple of slides to show you how we can help you and assist you in tapping into the potential investment opportunities in the Kingdom. I will leave it for Debbie to share the screen.
Yes, I'm working on that, and I might say that you've gotten a little bit darker on your screen as well.
Yeah, you know, it was cloudy in DC, and I thought I don't need to cover the curtains, but now it's I will try to adjust that. Now the sun just came up in DC. Okay, so
and I think you can see hopefully the screen is coming through your presentation, and I can see you better now. All good. So
I know that many of you already been to Saudi, and some of you still wants to go, and some of you maybe been in the past. But to give you an idea, Saudi, in terms of geography, it's larger than UK, Spain, France, Germany, and Italy combined. And also, just to put it in perspective, when you put it in compared to the US, that's how it look. If you can go to the next slide, David. Now, not only that, but also enjoy a strategic location. So you have more than 50 of the fast-growing markets are within 4 hours, and also over 40% of the world GDP is within 6 hours, and over 80% of the world's population is within only 7 hours, which makes it a great hub for your business to export and to expand into the region and beyond. In terms of being a resilient economy as part of the G20, so Saudi has, it's the first in population growth rate over the next 5 years among the G20 economy. Also, it has the 7th largest foreign assets reserves globally. The expected GDP growth in 2022 is 4.8%. And the foreign direct investment remains at a high percentage as a part of the GDP at around 35%. Now, the government is spending massively on education, healthcare, improving the infrastructure, but it's important to say that Saudi has the 8th highest government spending share as a percentage of GDP worldwide, but also one of the lowest debt to GDP ratio, which is a very interesting combination and shows you how resilient is the economy. For example, in education alone, in 2021, the expenditure was around 50 billion, healthcare, $47 billion. In safety, Saudi invests a lot, and it's 8th in terms of the world for police service reliability and 15th on globally for lowest incident of crimes. Now, in terms of infrastructure, as we spoke about the strategic location, so Saudi is developing a unique regional logistic hub and establishing special economic zones such as the IBLZAD, for example, to maximize existing investments in ports, railways, roads, and airports, such as the recently opened one in Haramain Railway, for example, connecting Mecca to Medina to Jeddah. Also, we're partnering with the private sector to develop and improve the transportation infrastructure as a whole. And also, it's important to say that it's a gateway to Africa as well as in Asia and the Middle. Now, in terms of digital economy, so we have a strong potential to develop a vibrant digital economy by harnessing the skills of our young digitally connected population. So Saudi has one of the highest consumer adoption rates for mobile technology, for example, globally, and ranking 3rd in the world for smartphone usages. It's also the first digital riser among the G20 economies. Tourism, as you know, and some of you might know that it was launched, the tourism visa on September 27th in 2019, which tested for the international events such as the Formula E, the Italian Super Cup, the European Golf Tour. And just last week, we had our first Formula One in Saudi, followed by the Red Sea Film Festival. So these are all global events that are coming to Saudi after opening the world for the tourism. Also, it's important to highlight that the annual expenditure of Saudi tourists, it's around $26.5 billion. So diverting that into the local economy just keep us in the right path to achieve the 10% contribution of tourism to GDP by 2030. This is an overview about the greenfield projects and the project that we're doing in Saudi. As we discussed, it's a big geography. So you can see here the location of the entities or of the projects that were mentioned also by the previous speakers, for example, in Neom, where it's located, the Red Sea, the Gidea. I'm not going to go through all of them, but in the next slides, I just want to take you quickly through 3 of them, which are, I would say, ready as the most. And if you go to Saudi now, you are able to see them. For example, the Red Sea project is the jewel of the Saudi tourism sector. It's an expansive land and property development that will transform Saudi Arabia's unspoiled Red Sea coast into a luxury tourism destination. The Red Sea project will set new standard in sustainable development while fostering unique experiences at one of the world's hidden natural treasures, and also plans to open more than 16 hotels in 2023. Diriyah is the birthplace of the first Saudi state. So in 1745, the city was named the country's capital, laying the foundation for what would later become a unified kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So we want to anchor our vision for the future on a jewel from the Saudi past. We want to preserve the UNESCO World Heritage Site and unique nature of such as Wadi Hanifa that was also mentioned by Marcus who visited there, and also revive them as a must-see attraction for Saudis and for international tourists. Lastly, but not least, the Alula. So Alula also it was mentioned. So there are very few places in the world where you can feel like a true explorer, charting the unknown in many historic destinations. You know, the illusion of discovery is promptly shattered, usually by a jungle of selfie sticks. But in Alula, which is the home to Saudi Arabia's first UNESCO World Heritage Site, deep in the desert in the northwestern region, you don't see the crowds that you will see usually in normal heritage sites. You will feel that you're living this experience alone. It's a living museum, you know, and what you see in terms of color of the rocks, color of the sands, shape of the rocks, and ancient tombs that remains. It's a legacy of more than 7,000 years of human civilization. It's just unique. Now let's go back to business. And I'm gonna show you, so these are the priority sectors that we focus on. I don't think we have the time to cover them all today, but maybe if we just skim through, for example, and when we talk about ICT, we have an ambitious vision to become the ICT hub for the region and beyond, with a focus on digital economy. The healthcare, we are a large youth based on a rapidly aging population, so we will have a big need on the demand of the healthcare systems. Mining and metals, the laws of mining has changed recently, so which create an attractive proposition for the mining sector in terms of raw materials availability, flexible incentive structure, and competitive loans. Energy and water, it's you know, the drive for diversification plus the growing population means that there is a huge demand for alternative energy and waste management. Culture, you know, we will be promoted as a way of life, so we will enable the growth of the economy by creating opportunities for international cultural exchange. It's very important to exchange that culture, and maybe with Colorado, after that, we can take it offline. Also, Debbie, we are working on a project with sister cities. So, for example, to give you an idea about the sister cities, if you have, let's say, the Hyde Park in New York, and you want to develop the King Salman Park in Riyadh, how can you do a sister city between Riyadh and New York, and how you can exchange that kind of information? So maybe Colorado can offer something to Saudi and vice versa, and we can discuss that as well. Now, before going, and I want to just let you know how you can access the opportunities and discuss with us the details. So this is the platform that what we have developed, the investsaudi.sa. This is how it looks like. We will help you before setup, during setup, and after setup, with a wide range of incentives. Those are the publicly available incentives, but once we see your business plan, we can help you to develop a tailored incentive plan. And also, I just want to recognize the team working hard in Riyadh and how the transformation happened in the last 2 years. So, for example, the investment license from 3 days, now you get it only in 3 hours. The number of the custom clearance period from 2 weeks to 24 hours only. Number of imports documents from 12 to 2. These are just a snapshot of that amazing achievement that happened in the last 2 years. Also, I need to recognize the team that are working hard, not only in Saudi, not only in the US, but also in France, UK, Germany, Russia, China, South Korea, Japan, Singapore. We have offices there. So if your business has an office in any of these locations, we have team members that can assist you on the ground there. And if you go to the next slide, Debbie, before I go, because I promised to show the website. So that's the website where you can connect with us and check the portal, investsaudi.sa. I look forward to stay in touch. Please reach out at any time. We're connected with you 24/7. And I will hand it to you over, Debbie, now. And we can't wait to also to hear from Delano. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I know that was a lot of slides. Hopefully I did an okay with your timing, but definitely a lot of great information that we're happy to also post in whatever format you feel is appropriate, or make sure those links are available for our business partners as well. Okay, perfect. I'd love to now move, one of the most fascinating people I've had the pleasure of meeting recently is Delano Roosevelt. And Del and I had a chance to connect here in Colorado recently on the topic of mining, and definitely is something that's an important natural resource to Coloradans and a lot of business interest here in terms of how we can share information. But Del, before I jump back into you, I want to give an introduction for the folks on the webinar. So it's my pleasure to introduce Del Roosevelt. Del is the president and CEO of the U.S. Saudi Business Council. He has served in many posts internationally, where he is focused on developing investment and trade in the Middle East, and specifically in Saudi Arabia. Prior to the U.S. Saudi Business Council, Del served as the Director of New Business Development for the Reza Investment Group. He also serves on various boards that work to support charitable efforts and promote international understanding. Del was one of the folks who helped kick off my friendship and appreciation for Her Royal Highness Ambassador Rima many, many months ago, and really is one of the catalysts that helped to lead to our delegation as well. So we have you to thank for that, Del, and welcome to the webinar.
Debbie, thanks so much. I hope that all of our friends attending today and watching are appreciating the amount of information that's being shared here, not only through experience, because that is the best source of relating information is I was just there and I did this. That's one. Two, through you see, Debbie, this is exactly why I hate going after Abdul Rahman, because he kills it every time. So, I mean, I could literally just go back and make a sandwich now and we could all go home and you all would be fine. Absolutely.
I think he teed it up just right for you. That's why you're both still on the stage.
But
yeah.
This is Abdul Rahman is a wonderful guy. And when he says that please reach out to him and that he's a 24/7 guy, please take that to heart. He is a hands-on individual and is absolutely an essential team member that we try to participate on that team as well in getting your business up and running in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. A couple of quick points I wanted to run through, comments that I picked up. Karina, I feel everything that you related about Alula. It is exactly that. There's a lot of spirit there. It also is home of the Alula because, as it was appropriately mentioned, that tourism and entertainment have become such a large new sector for Saudi Arabia. The Alula is where the Alula Film Commission is based. I'm sorry, and they're trying to attract live production to that whole area for all the reasons that you experienced yourself. It would be an ideal place for that. And we can all talk about that if there are businesses out there that are into tourism and entertainment. Matt, yes, absolutely. The coffee, the gawa, the cardamom coffee. I've been trying to find it here in the U.S. ever since I started going to Saudi in 2005, and it's just not the same. And where there could be a business that I'd be happy to go explore with you. I'm bringing that Saudi jet fuel here to the United States because it certainly is wonderful. Yeah, Polly, you mentioned, if we could adopt more rules here that would be encouraging for the promotion of young business people to find ways to encourage and incentivize them to start new businesses here in this country the way that they're doing it over there, it would be quite something. But you better believe that it's happening because here I am sitting in the state of California, and I don't know how many of our friends and people holding California driver's license are now residing in your state and in the state of Texas, because you might think there could be more done in Colorado. believe me, there could definitely be more done in the state of California to try and retain businesses. Danny, you touched on minerals and resources, AI and robotics, absolutely 100%. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about how everybody joining us today can dip their toe into that arena or those arenas and find out where there might be opportunities for them. You talk about young entrepreneurs. One of the things that weren't mentioned, there were a lot of wonderful numbers that Abdul Rahman shared. One that we need to all keep in mind is the tapestry of the workforce has changed a great deal in Saudi Arabia. If you just take the numbers of, you have roughly 34 to 36 million people in total population in Saudi Arabia. 80% of the Saudi population is under 30 years old. Under 30 years old. That's phenomenal. So if you think about, the opportunity to meet incredibly switched on young people that have fire in their belly and a desire for growth, men and women. And by the way, the women, since I lived in Kingdom for 15 years, the women have always had this incredible drive and intellect and just tenacious desire to create business. It's just, as we all know, it's been very difficult, and there were always hurdles in preventing that. And now the opportunity for for the medium and large, small to medium enterprises here in the United States to find these people who, you've got Abdul Rahman, you've got the U.S. Saudi Business Council, but the key is going to be the people over there that are incredibly well connected in their own right to make business opportunities happen. And that's part of what we all try to do here in promoting your business, is finding those relationships that you can create to really give you a jump and a jump up into the opportunities that exist over there. And most importantly, yes, looking at a business, starting a business over there or entering the market. The one thing I want to say and relate from the perspective of the U.S. Saudi Business Council is that if you might have heard stories in the past of American companies going over there and selling, I don't care, selling products. And you're exporting all the time, and you're showing up once or twice a year to shake some hands and collect a big fat check and go home. Those days, my friends, are over. Saudi Arabia, like any and every other country on the planet, is looking to localize business, is to create opportunities for Saudis to grow and create a middle class, much needed, I would say, imperative middle class to sustain and balance the kingdom and their economy, to provide that wonderful foundation that most developed nations are absolutely dependent on, which is that middle class platform foundation. These are all things that we can explore together. We at the Saudi Business Council, our specific purpose is to work with fantastic organizations like the Ministry of Finance and everyone else and all the other ministries that this group here represented, all of you Coloradans and everyone else watching this webinar today so well at, because I've been hearing back as well about this delegation from Colorado that was just here and blew everybody's socks off. So more of this has to happen. It has to happen from more states, and this is where the U.S. Saudi Business Council comes into play, which is once you have found an opportunity, and we will help you find those opportunities between Abdul Rahman and ourselves. We at the Business Council produce economic reports from corporate sectors every month in different sectors. It gives you a bird's eye view on, well, who else is out there doing this right now? Is there actually an opportunity for me? And, gosh, this sounds like, it sounds like 42 hotels in this one operation called the Red Sea Development. these are all big boys, big boys. Well, no, there is absolute room for you and need for the small to medium and medium to large enterprises, because if you think about the absolute magnitude of what is being built there, their daily consumables are off the chart. Already, the existing organizations over there that are in place, these monster operations that are in place and operating, have needs. And if you're an American manufacturer of a widget that goes into much larger widgets at a refinery or at a power plant or in a mining operation, there's going to be tremendous opportunity for you over there. And if you're willing to explore setting up and planting your flag in Saudi Arabia and say, we're going to manufacture here, we're going to buy our feedstock for our product right over the fence from this petrochemical plant right next door, and we're going to cut our costs by doing that. Plus, if everyone else is importing these widgets and we're making them here, we've just blown the market away. We're saving 25-30% import costs, and we're going to take the market. So these are all things that we can help you explore and may come up and make an intelligent decision to identify if these are opportunities that fit your company. And the most important thing that I want to leave you with, before I've already gone over by 3 minutes, is that when you find the right opportunity, the U.S. Saudi Business Council, at that point, that's when we get really busy, because we lock arms with your organization through the entire process, from soup to nuts, on business licensing, on visas, on getting a corporate registration, finding a partner, not finding a partner, everything that you could imagine, which would involve consideration of moving into an area that might be a little bit daunting to you as a U.S. business, but it's doable. It's achievable. And between Abdul Rahman and Nisa and ourselves at the U.S. Saudi Business Council, you will never be left alone. We will always have your back, and we will stay with you through the entire process until you're selling these things in not only Saudi Arabia, but the MENA, Middle East, North Africa. So in your mind, just draw a triangle. Say Morocco to India to Joburg down in South Africa. That's what you want to be looking at, and that's the possibility and potential. So there's a lot more that we can talk about when the time's right. As Abdul Rahman said, we're here for you at all times. Give a call, go onto our website, and we'll explore this together and initially let you know if there's an opportunity. And if there is not, we're going to tell you, because we're just as big of a responsibility for us to say, no, there's already 30 companies over there making pipe. But so why would you do that? But maybe so. Maybe there is an opportunity, and we're the organizations that can help you define that. Debbie, with that, thank you so much for going over and being wonderful ambassadors of the U.S. as a whole and for the state of Colorado. And we just adore working with you. Thanks so much for the
Absolutely. It's been a highlight, Del. A couple of quick follow-up questions for you all, and then we'll wrap up our time together. Abdul Rahman, I want to give you another question, and then I have the last one for you, Del. But give us a sense, again, we'll talk about the word competitiveness. Countries are competing for business partners, business opportunities, investors. Why Saudi Arabia? I think it's not necessarily top of mind for Colorado businesses, but why should Saudi Arabia be top of mind?
Perfect. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Del as well for the great intro. So why Saudi Arabia? I've recently read a book, How Geography Affects Businesses and Investment and Trade. And I can't think of a better place that is strategically located as Saudi Arabia. As I said, 4 hours away from more than 50 of the fastest growing market. 40% of the world GDP is 6 hours away, and 80% of the world population is only within 7 hours. Not only that, but Saudi opened its doors and its big doors just recently to the 100% foreign ownership, and part of the G20 economy. But Saudi is an emerging economy, and as we know, emerging economies present numerous opportunities. And typically an emerging market are those economies that will have not yet reached developed status, but have in a macroeconomic sense outplays their developing counterparts. However, in Saudi Arabia, I believe we have reached a developed status when it comes to the investment ecosystem. And to give you an example, the kingdom introduced 7 investment principles by the royal decree to ensure that a fully competitive investment environment is enforced at the highest regulatory and legal levels. This comes from equality between Saudi and foreign investors, to protection of investments, to sustainability of investment, to equal access to investment incentives. So you are operating in a strategically located market, plus an emerging economy, however, with a developed status, with regulated principles that are regulated by the royal court to ensure there is a competitiveness when it comes to investment.
Mm-hmm. Well said, well said. I think it was to Danny's point, you know, the time, all the stars are aligning and the time is really critical to jump in at this point in time. Thank you again for joining us. Del, last question to you, and then we'll wrap up for today. You know, again, I think it's interesting. I had a lot of people say, you're going to Saudi Arabia. You know, there was sort of this interesting tone to it, like, that's an interesting place to go for a business delegation. But you've had a really fascinating personal story with Saudi Arabia that goes back generations in your family. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I find that such a wonderful story to talk about how our countries have been tied together for many decades. And I wondered if you'd give some commentary on that, on a little bit more about the relationship, the historic relationship between our two countries.
Sure, Debbie. And this will also tie into the question posed to Abdul Rahman as to why Saudi. I mean, there's the obvious that if you're going to be manufacturing a product and your distribution plan includes all of Western and Eastern Europe and the African continent, why are you going to make something in China that you have to add yet another 50% charge on transportation, you know, and all of the risks involved in making something in China when you can make it in Saudi Arabia and cut those costs and add it to your bottom line? That's one. Two, why do it? Why Saudi Arabia? In my own personal experience there, when I went over in 2005, initially, I'd never been to the Mideast before. And I was there on a completely separate mission. The mission was a philanthropic, cross-cultural bridge building mission that was initially started by my grandfather in 1945. My grandfather was Franklin Roosevelt, and he was doing his thing up in Yalta at the Yalta conference, I should say, with Stalin and Churchill, and trying to figure out how to sort out all of the issues post-war. Well, this young king, Abdulaziz, the first king of Saudi Arabia, had just finished uniting and organizing the entire Saudi peninsula and uniting the tribes of the peninsula, and asked a simple question. Well, we know we have some oil and we have some resources here. How do we develop them? Who do we develop them with? We have a meeting with Churchill set up, but I know nothing about the Americans. So the Americans, do they colonize like the English? No, Your Majesty, they don't. Do they believe in God? They most assuredly do believe in God. And all right, well, I want to meet with Roosevelt first. So they got a message to FDR up at Yalta, and he bailed. he got it immediately. He understood what this was all about, and he just took off. Needless to say that his buddy Winston Churchill was not all too pleased when he found out that, one, he bailed, and two, why he bailed, because he knew that if FDR got to the King Abdulaziz first, it was going to be game over. And so these two great men met in February of 1945 on on the Great Bitter Lake for about 18 hours on board the USS Quincy. And FDR had sent another destroyer down to Jeddah on the West Coast. It was a new port city, newly built port city on the coast of Jeddah, to pick up the king, and brought him up. And there's a whole story behind that we'll have to do another webinar on. It's just an absolute riot as to all of the things that happened in between. The two men met for about 18 hours. And when you look at pictures, the body language was so engaging, and lots of smiles, and the king and the cultural, the introduction of two completely diverse cultures was absolutely priceless. Of the king with his entourage and his own livestock so he could eat halal, and the interaction between his entourage and U.S. sailors. You can let your mind run on that one for a while. And FDR respecting the king's religious heritage and not wanting to smoke in front of him, and having a secretary coming in, Mr. President, we have an urgent matter for you that needs to be addressed immediately. And oh, Your Majesty, excuse me, I need to. He just run into the behind the door, smoke a cigarette, and then come back out again, right? That kind of thing. And it was just respect for each other, which was wonderful. This resulted in then called Standard Oil of California going into business, now Chevron. Texas Oil Company, Texaco, going into business. Boeing, David, you know this story probably better than I do, that the king asked FDR, what is it like to fly in an airplane? So first thing, FDR calls the Donald Douglas plant here in Long Beach, California, where our family home, and ordered up a DC-3 and had it shipped to the king, and broke it down into boxes and called it agricultural equipment, because there's this whole thing in the US about gift of public funds. So, and it came equipped with a US Army pilot, a 22-year-old young guy by the name of Joe Grant, who stuck with the king for years as his private pilot. And this created and solidified a relationship that at the 60th anniversary of this relationship that endured 60 years wonderfully, through ups and downs, disagreements, but the relationship endured because both sides wanted it to endure. 2 Gulf Wars launched out of their backyard. I mean, just the Saudi Riyal pegged to the US dollar. 25% of the world's oil is made there, 25% is utilized here in the United States. In 2005, then King Abdullah, the son of King Abdulaziz, may he rest in peace, wanted to re-engage with America post 9/11. He was frustrated he was frustrated with the lack of healing at the pace of the healing post 9/11, and was becoming quite concerned about America and Americans. Not so much inside the Beltway. The Beltway will always behave how the Beltway behaves, as in any country. He was worried about Americans and wanted to remind them of this 60-year relationship. So his brainchild was, let's create a Washington, D.C. based NGO, and let's get a grandson of the first king, King Abdulaziz, his grandson, and let's get a grandson of FDR, put them together. And if there was some love in the room, these 2 grandsons will go around the United States and remind Americans via community meetings and dinners and avenues like that about the 60-year relationship. And again, going back to why Saudi Arabia, why would we as American business people do business over there, is because of the character of the individuals that the personal character and the business character. I met my employer over there who happened to be a board member of this organization. And he said simply, look, why don't you help us? We need American companies, and you know US government, you know US business. Please try to find us some companies in these specific areas where there are already recognized opportunities for significant offtake. And I responded to this fellow. I said, well, you know, I've been here one time, Sheikh. I don't know anything about doing business in Saudi Arabia. And he leaned in and put his arm on my shoulder. He says, we do. and you know, I felt that, oh boy, this is going well. And he said, well, let's try it out for 12 months. And after the 12 months, if you still love us and we still love you, let's continue. And we shook hands. And 15 years later is where I ended up on a handshake. I have never had anything written with this industrial and trading business, large business trading family. And this is the type of thing that impressed me, was seeing the commitment that once a Saudi company commits to your organization, they will stick with you through thick and thin to make it work. And that's really a kind of a summation of why Saudi Arabia, because they commit to something and they'll make it work. And quite frankly, to all the American companies out there that are watching this today, there's no secret formula per se. The secret formula is if you simply do what you say you're going to do, you will have a friend, an ally, and a business partner for generations to come, which is what's happened in my family. As I originally just got into this on a nothing else than really feeling a more of a commitment to my grandfather's legacy and how I might honor him. And now it's turned into a continued family legacy. And I wish only the same for all of you, for these opportunities, for you to experience these opportunities. And through organizations like the Colorado Business Roundtable, through the Ministry of Investment with Abdul Rahman Bakir and myself at the U.S. Saudi Business Council, we can make these things happen for you too. And as they say, inshallah, you'll experience the same outcome of that we've all enjoyed of doing business with Saudi Arabia over the years.
Yeah, perfect summary, Del. I really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm, and also your counsel before and after our delegation trip. So I'll just close us out. I know we're a couple minutes over time, but it was really very cool to hear your personal story and your personal connection. And the truth is, we don't want another webinar. We want you to come to Colorado and spend time with us and tell us more of that, you know, perhaps in person, if you can, next time you're stopping through.
We Debbie, I know we're over time. We have 4 ministries coming over here in Q1 and Q2 of next year, all asking for road trips in all of the areas that would suit Colorado right to the brim. And so we will be working together with you to make sure that Coloradans are either we can stop through there, or will be invited to either New York or Los Angeles to these one-on-one meetings with decision makers. We'll make it happen. And so we have lots of information that will be shared with you on upcoming events. So here's to the future. Let the business drive the effort. No business, no effort. If there's business, put the effort in and you'll enjoy the outcome.
Perfect, perfect. Well, consider the answer yes for how we can continue to partner with Colorado Business Roundtable, and we look forward to it. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. For all the business partners that are tuning in to this or to the recording, we'll have some information on our website that was shared today on how your business can look for specific opportunities through the Ministry of Investment or through the U.S. Saudi Business Council. And we look forward to hosting again through Colorado Business Roundtable some of these collaborative discussions, and in particular, knowing that that our business sectors definitely have a global mindset and want to take advantage of opportunities that help them grow their businesses in Colorado, knowing that you know, we've got to think about things globally from here on out. So thanks everyone again for joining us. And this has been a presentation and a conversation with Colorado Business Roundtable through our Colorado delegation to Saudi Arabia. Thanks again, Del Roosevelt and Abdul Bakir. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Cheers.
Cheers.